Welcome to the Educational Leadership Podcast, the podcast where education meets innovation and leaders like you transform schools into thriving communities. Join us as we guide you through the ever-evolving world of educational leadership, from strategies that inspire your staff to insights that shape your students' futures. We're here to sharpen your skills, amplify your talents, and ignite your impact. So grab your coffee, a notebook, and most importantly, your growth mindset as we embark on a journey to redefine what it means to lead with purpose and passion. This isn't just a podcast, it's professional development. Let's build better schools together, one episode at a time. Now, here's your host, Principal JL. I am very excited for today's guest, Josh Tovar. He is a passionate educational leader, proud U.S. Marine veteran, and an advocate for student-centered leadership. Born in Juarez, Mexico, and raised in El Paso, Texas, Josh brings over 3 decades of experience across 13 educational institutions, from elementary schools to the university level. He is currently serving as the principal at Memorial Pathway Academy in Garland ISD in North Dallas, Texas. He is known for his unwavering belief in the power of relationships and his guided mantra, connections before content. A dynamic presence on social media and the host of the PGP podcast, Josh champions professional growth and reminds us that podcasts are free PD, no excuses. Now let's get to some free PD with Josh Tovar. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Leadership Podcast. I am excited and I am thrilled to bring Josh Tovar in on the show. So Josh, welcome.
Thank you very much, my brother. Appreciate you reaching out and connecting. You know what? We're going to do this in a couple of weeks. So check his show out and then check out the PGP podcast. Hey, Josh Tovar, principal of Memorial Pathway Academy in Garland, Garland, USA. Ready to rock and roll with this young man whose journey I just started. I think I'm on episode 10 of yours. And you know what? I'm learning a lot. Tom Osborne was also one of the guys that I appreciate. And that's the whole point about listening to podcasts. It's free PD. But most importantly, it reminds us as leaders that we take knowledge from different people, different parts of the country, and ultimately make it a better version of ourselves so that our kids could prosper. So thank you for having me here on your show.
You bet, Josh. Wow, that's probably the best introduction of somebody coming in on the show. So I appreciate the shout outs and the listening and the engagement with the episodes. But you don't just listen to my podcast, you listen to other podcasts. And we'll get into that later on in the show. But Josh, I'm going to go ahead and start you off with the same question I start everybody off on this show. What inspired you to become an educator?
My pathway was not, as we hear, on the traditional way of being a little kid wanting to teach. That was not at all. I was a very dysfunctional youth. I was not very scholarly. I was a big time loser. I was a drunk in high school. I had no pathway. I was a child of divorce. I was part of the statistics of a low-income minority male child of divorce was not supposed to make it, let alone an immigrant. I am Virginia and Jesus's American dream. And so we came from another country and immigrated to the United States. But in the end, you go through the trials and tribulations of life. And you know this, in Nebraska, in Utah, in Miami, it doesn't matter where. Kids go through the same obstacles: alcoholism, self-medication, divorce. And it's what we do at the schoolhouse to ensure that we provide the proper opportunities. But I didn't have it. I'm back from the Mesozoic period in the 1980s. And they didn't have SEL. They didn't have computers. We didn't have none of that nonsense. It was suck it up, buttercup, Generation X all in the house here. And ultimately, it was one of those things that I really had no way. Now, prior to this, my brother had left the house, again, child of divorce, had no other way, got in conflict with my dad, and he took off to the Marines. And so, very long story short, a lot of dynamics that happen, obviously, in families. We know that you go through that in your chair, being the principal and as the assistant principals. You hear all of these stories of kids. And my brother took off and saw the world, but he was not very successful up to this day. I just could only speak facts to where he doesn't have a long-standing career. And now he's getting close to the 60 mark. And my mom knew that I was a loser, knew all the issues that I had. And so I took it upon myself to not go down the pathway of cocaine, heavier drugs. I was drinking maybe like 4 days a week. I live in the border town of El Paso and Juarez, and all you needed was $5 to $10 to go get drink and drown. So you would drink like 9 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock, whatever it took you to get over there. You would get drunk, and then you would come back right before the bell rang, and you would go home. And it's one of those things. I'm not proud of it, but you know what? Those were the facts of life. And if you think that those kids that don't go to your high school in Nebraska or don't go to your high school in Utah, you think they're going home just to watch Maury Povich? They're not. They're self-medicating. They're doing a lot of those things like I did. It's a big thing about life. And so my mom, she left us. My mom in the divorce said, I don't want custody of my kids. So, there's a lot of trauma there, when you find out these things down the road. And so I needed to go, and they didn't care back then about CCMR. They didn't care about total number of credits. They didn't care about none of this stuff. And so I graduated the bottom of my class, barely with 0.5 credits over, bottom 2/3. And I needed to, sharpen my future. And the only way was to the Marines. You know that the Marine Corps has a proud tradition of success. And I needed a quick kick in the ass. And so since I was 17, my mom said, there's a whole purpose behind the story. Besides connecting with your kids. It's the same story in 2025 as it was in 1988. And my mom says, I'm not going to sign your paperwork unless you decide to go to school. And so the Marine recruiter, the recruiters, they just won their quota. And so he says, okay, you're still a quota, go to the reserve. And so that's where my mom agreed to, and I agreed to go to the University of Texas at El Paso and go to boot camp, go to Fort Sill, Oklahoma to field artillery school. And from that point on, I didn't know what I wanted. Obviously, success breeds success, but I never had that. I was a loser in high school. Academically, I still have learning disabilities. So, hey, senior teacher or freshman teacher in high school, I have 3 masters, certifications, and I still have problems reading. That silence that silence for you to ponder what I just said. We have principal. He'll tell you that we have principal meetings, and they give us articles to read in Jigsaw, and then we're supposed to read those articles, right? Like for 5 minutes. I'm always the last one. I still have a learning disability. It's hard for me to read. I still get distracted. And so if you expect your kid to be successful, you're talking to somebody that I feel is a successful principal, and I still have reading problems. So don't say that the kid should already know it by now because they're a freshman or they're a senior. No, a learning problem is a learning problem, whether it be self-imposed or you were just born with it, just like my glasses. I was born with that disability, whatever. And not just using that term as something that's not equal, all right, not as a crutch. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so my mom, what she would do was when we lived in Juarez, my mom received a scholarship from Lydia Patterson. That's why I'm a Methodist, because Lydia Patterson Institute gave her, a Methodist organization, gave her a scholarship to go to UTEP. There's a lot of connections there, obviously. And what she would do is that she would take us to the public library. What she did, she would go to jail nowadays, all right? She would leave us hours in the El Paso Public Library while she went to school, which was like around 25 minutes walking distance. And we would stay there hours upon hours. And what I always gravitated to were biographies by Ronald Sim. I still remember it. I loved Conquistador biographies. And I would read them, and I would read them, and I would love them. I would sit there. I knew I was in compliance because I didn't want my mom to hit me with her chancla. And so I would stay quiet. They would give me certificates. And it was a great experience. And so she goes, you like history, become a history teacher. So that was, I think, a 7-minute journey on how I became an educator. I did not want to be an educator. I disliked history. I used to say this as a middle school kid. Why do I need to know history? They're already dead. Go figure. I have a master's in history. I was never taught appropriately. What do I mean by that? I was never taught. I was always taught by that coach. It's still happening. Look at me. It's still happening. That coach just goes by his football plays and not by engaging the kids with ability to make history alive. And if you do it if you do it in such a passionate way, people will love history. And so, along the way, I found that passion. I found that beauty of what history was, because then you start seeing it in today's TV, literally today's television. You start seeing the cycle of humanity. And I was able to make a connection with the content to my kids. I'm there so they learn. I wasn't there for me to teach. Let me repeat that again. There for them to learn, not for me to teach. So it was my job to engage them and make dead dudes look cool. And it's not easy.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. Explore more podcasts at www.teachbetterpodcastnetwork.com. Now let's get back to the episode.
It's not easy. And so I've always had that love for history. And I could tell, like right now, my 6-year-old, he just learned about George III. He just learned about TJ, Thomas Jefferson, writing that last minute rough draft on July the 3rd. And he had to turn it in for his group work. You see, if you connected with them, then they're going to get it. Yeah. And it's showing that passion, that love. So that was my pathway into education. I didn't want to be an educator. I never aspired to it. My dad was a businessman, so I thought that was going to be my business route. But you know what? God, life, and my pathway took me to this beautiful profession. The profession that creates all the other professions, education.
You bet. Hey, man, that's a lot of just great insight and background about you, Josh. And there's some similarities. I was kind of, as you're telling your story, I can relate to a lot of that. People, I don't really talk about this, but I grew up poor. Okay. I grew up on food stamps. My mom was the only, and my dad, I'm sorry, but he was a lazy bum. I'll put it out there. He at least was there, but he was still a ghost father, is what we call him. There, but not really present. Having people in your life to help you get to where you're at. I joined the military just so I could go to school. That's why I joined the military. So we kind of have that connection there, having the military. I was in the reserves. Actually, I have been to El Paso. I have been to the White Sand Missile Range. I did a lot of training down there. So I know the area. A lot of those things when you're talking about Juarez and El Paso, I started remembering, White Sand Missile Range. We went there about every year. I've been deployed. I was in the Iraqi war during freedom. So my military background did help me with my ability in education leadership later. And I became a math teacher. I was also a PE teacher. You became a history teacher. Those subjects are really tough to teach because like you said, you have to bring it alive. You have to make it connect with the kids. So when you're in the classroom, you're teaching the kids history. What are some things that you learned as a history teacher that helped develop your leadership skills?
One thing is, and I'm glad that and thank you for sharing with me and with the audience about your family. And that's what brings us street cred with kids, because if they need to connect that you were a food stamp kid. They need to connect that I was a drunk. You know what? But that's not who we are now. That's not but you know what? It's what made us become successful, air quotes, what success is. Because everyone, hey, a plumber right now, he's successful. For me, those stories and the engagement ties all back to who I was as a student. So you see, I was a knucklehead, right? I was self-medicating. I didn't care. I did enough just to get the D. I did enough just to get the D in high school. So I know that thought process. I know about being mediocre and living for the minimum standard. And so what that taught me was coming in as an educator was don't put up with nonsense. They need tough love. And I just recorded a video because I finally read all the cards. I started reading all the cards my kids wrote me for Principal's Day from May the 1st. And a lot of them are like, thank you for being tough. Thank you for doesn't matter when. As long as you're structured and caring, kids say they don't want discipline, but they love discipline. They yearn for it. They want it. They dislike wishy-washy roller coaster educators and administrators. They want you to be consistent with who you are as an individual, and that gives you street cred. And I learned one thing. You're not going to mess with me. You're going to show up on time. You're going to do what you need to do. This is what is expected from you, and this is what I require. And I will keep on giving it to you and keep on giving it to you because there's certain things that I'm not good at. I'm not good at mitosis and meiosis. I'm not good at A squared plus B squared equals C squared. I can't get you slow. I suck at that. But I need someone that will engage me so that I could find a connection for that. So it was my job to make sure that I use my past experiences as a poor student, a poor scholar, and make sure that I engage it along the way. Always start implementing little things to tell the kid, hey, man, I don't know if you're going through crap at home. I don't know if you're going through divorce like I did. I don't know if you're self-medicating, but you know what? It's your birthday. And I started always honoring the kids on their birthday. Always. And I can't tell you the countless numbers of times they tell me, your pencil and your card was the only thing I received for a birthday. Little things like that. And then I started putting kids' work on the wall. Kids' work. This was back in the Paleozoic period. You know, you just start putting stuff up there, which is now, it's what is expected for quality and connections with kids. And so what I learned was making sure that kids felt structure, kids felt appreciated, and kids felt heard. Now, I'm not going to do what you tell me to do. I got something to do. And I'm still that way right now. I'm not going to put up with your nonsense because you have a destiny. You have a purpose in life. And it's my job to pull you, push you, love you along the way on that track, whatever it might be. So being consistent, being loving is what built me up because I never had that. I needed to be the educator I never got. Back in my high school, there was never, you know what, you would hear the announcements, you know this, the student council, hey, come to student council today. I'm like, what the hell is that? I got to go get drunk. Oh, come, hey, the pep rally before the game. Oh, senior sunrise. Oh, senior sunset. Oh, the thespians are performing. I didn't know none of that. I didn't know the American factory style system, prom, homecoming, all of the little things that go around the gardener, right? Nothing. I didn't know none of that. I would see it. I wouldn't ask questions because I needed to go self-medicate. So it's my job to always now say, hey, get involved with this. You might like this. I see that you wear this kind of shirt. How about you try this? Provide them with the opportunities that a high school has, that a middle school has, that an elementary has to make them feel part of what the air quotes school pride is, because all of us determine school pride at different levels, whether it be elementary, middle school, and high school. So that's what it taught me, to be engaging, loving, and structured, and making sure that I push those kids, whether they want to or not, to success.
Yeah, you say a lot of things in there that are impactful. I believe this. If kids know that you care, they're going to learn. They're going to do the things you ask, building those relationships when they know you care because you take the time to get to know them, not just, when they're in trouble, but when, you're just getting to know them on the daily, like, hey, how's you going? I like to fist bump kids in the hallways and, appreciate that they're there and say, hey, we want you to be here. We want you to be welcome to our school, because when I showed up at the current school I'm at, they didn't want to be there. So I had to go, well, how can we help them understand we want them there? We care about them. Because once they understand that you care, they're going to do what's needed. And another thing that you pointed out, kids will rise to the expectations that you set. So if you set a low bar, they're going to rise to that. If you set a high bar, they're going to rise to that. And the proof's in the pudding for me, because I've elevated the bars over the last 3 years at my school. The more we raise this, the more they're going to get to that expectation. because when I got here, they're like, oh, we're just glad that they showed up. Well, I'm not okay with that. I want them to be here, but we need to push them to be the best that they can be. And so I feel like a lot of those things that you just talked about, hopefully a lot of principals are understanding that's a great way to build that culture and build that inclusivity with the kids and build that relationship. So they will do the things that you need them to do, because I'm pretty sure because you build those relationships and you have that story, they can understand where you're from. And like you said, you built that street cred to where when the tough things happen, they're going to respect what you tell them because you built that relationship. And I'll tell you, just even today, there was a kid, he's a knucklehead. Love the kid. And a coach asked him, hey, do you give Mr. Lennon a hard time? He's like, no, I respect him too much. Because I've built up a relationship with him, he respects when I say this is the expectation. He just does it. And so I think that was a lot of good things. And I think your military background kind of showed through there a little bit, because I have kind of the same philosophies and ideas as a leader. So how does the military kind of affect your leadership style or just your leadership in general?
I think it's crucial because if you know, the Marines tear you down to build you back up. And that's why it's an elite force across the world. And it's about establishing structures and procedures. And you and I know this, and every single last principal across the United States or the world knows this. If you don't have systems and procedures in place that are repetitive, then you're going to have chaos and anarchy. And I think that that's one of those crucial things that the Marine Corps did teach me about being consistent with your actions and making sure that you're a person of your word. And when you're a person of your word and you establish this protocol, it doesn't matter who, they understand what the expectation is. And then how you're able to make them believe. What do I mean by that? Believe in the vision that you're bringing to the table. And it goes back to, again, the street cred, because then you know what? You need to have street cred. Because if you don't have street cred with the adults, they ain't going to be rolling with you forever.
Oh, yeah.
And so if you're not rolling together, then there's that chaos that I was talking about.
Yeah. I really appreciate that. I mean, I could just tell your military background does influence, because it does influence me as well. I actually got to be non-commissioned officer in my 8 years of reserves. I don't know, what was your MOS and what?
Field artillery. I was a cannon cocker. We didn't face any kind of, literally, I was at the end of my contract when the first Persian Gulf started. And so the only thing that was that we mobilized. And you know that in the reserve rank, unless you're really active, then the ranks go up. And so pretty much we were doing our monthly drill, our 2 weeks in the summer, but it still kept you fresh with the idea and the mentality of who you are as an individual. Because there I was in the middle of 29 palms grading papers. There I was, people don't understand what the hell I just said, but
Yeah.
it was weird, all right, to be grading geography papers in the middle of 29 palms.
Yeah. I actually finished my 8 years in the reserve before finishing college, because I decided to take the 10-year route. I did not go into education out of the gate. It took me a while to figure out what I wanted to do. I thought I was going to be a physical therapist at one point. Anyway, but I love what I do, and I'm glad I found what I found as well. So let's talk about you're a teacher. You're teaching history. You're engaging kids. You got this street cred. You've learned some things. What was the deciding factor to go from teacher to administrator? Can you talk about what was the moment? What was, were you tapped on the shoulder? Were you encouraged, or you decided this was my next step? What was it that said, hey, I'm going to become an administrator?
My first principal, I was not satisfied with the condition, and I don't try to be a prima donna or anything, but I knew that there was such a thing as free agency back in the Paleozoic era. Because if you're a strong teacher, other principals, sometimes unethical principals, will talk to you and will tell you, hey, you want to come to my school? You want to, because word gets out, in districts, words get out, right? And so I decided to leave this is my 13th place in 32 years, 13th organization. And so people want to say, you're unstable. Yeah, I am. But you know what? Craziness makes us propel sometimes. My next principal, I was hired, but he left. You know how that happens in summer? He hired me in summer, but then he left to another school. And the lady that took over, that's my guardian angel. I will always speak her name. There's a handful of ladies that have made me who I am, and she was the very first one, Millie Williams. Millie Williams, strong woman, strong African American woman, in my second middle school. Oh man, you name it, that woman. Woo! She was snapping left and right. That lady was a drill instructor. She had that school in check. She had it out there. And then when she saw me, she didn't hire me. She didn't hire me. She inherited me. I was not her hire. And you know, that's kind of rough. Being new to the school and the previous dude hired somebody, you're like, I don't know if that's my cup of tea. You know the game.
Oh, yeah.
There's a game out there amongst administrators. And then she saw me in action. And she was a proud graduate of Ross State University. And she said, in middle school, if you know or you don't know, if you're a coach for one thing, you're a coach for every single last sport. If they have marbles, you're the coach for JV marbles. If you've got a hot jumping rope, then you're the varsity jumping rope. Whatever it is in middle school, you do it all. And she said, Coach, I need you to go to school and become an administrator. And I'm like, who's this lady? I was going to be one of those guys that just dies being a history teacher because I loved it, right? And I dug some of the coaching stuff. But she goes, no, you need to get enrolled. So you know what? I don't know her. She didn't hire me. We're just building a relationship back and forth. Then the next semester, she goes to Alpine, Texas. That's where Ross is. And she brings me back a catalog. And she says, I told you, you need to go. Here's the catalog. I'm like, yeah. Okay, yes, ma'am. You know, I love her leadership. I love that she called out people, both kids and adults. And then the next semester, which was the following year, she goes, I ain't playing with you. You need to go to school. Well, I went to school. She did everything possible to ensure that I went to school. She changed the master schedule for me twice. Okay. Let me repeat that again. She changed the master schedule for me twice. She created a position for me to make sure that I was able to do my internship hours. And so she created in-school suspension. We never had it. But she created it for me so that I could be also the administrative intern. Without that woman, I am not sitting here talking to you. Without that woman, Millie Williams, I am not sitting here. She kept pushing me and setting me up for success. Every single last possible way. And obviously, you know what? That's one of God's angels sending that purpose in my life. She did everything, like I stated, to make sure that I became an administrator.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey there, amazing educational leaders. If you're finding value in this podcast, learning new insights, getting inspired, or just nodding along thinking, yep, I needed that, then why keep it to yourself? Share this podcast with a colleague, a fellow school leader, or a teacher that is inspiring into leadership. Send them a link, post about it, or just casually drop, hey, you need this in your life the next time you see them. Let's grow this community of game-changing educators together, because great leadership isn't a solo act, it's a movement. Now, back to the show. Good. Wow, that's a powerful story, and I'm really appreciative that she did push you and she did get you to where you are at today. I think as administrators, we do have somebody that helps us see that path. Because even for myself, I was perfectly fine being a head football coach and a math teacher. And I had the dream job because I was halftime PE, halftime math, head football coach. I was like, this is great. But it was my wife's grandpa that sat me down, who was a former administrator. He's like, you could do more. I like, whatever, I was like, yeah, no way. But that sat with me. And then years later, I said, you know what? I think he's right. And then I went ahead and did that. With getting into your principalship, talk about like your first principalship you learned, and just talk about your principalship journey up to being where you're at today in your current role. Just kind of talk about that process and kind of where you, like you said, you were in like your 13th, fifth through school. So what are some lessons you learned along the way? And then, what you're doing today at your current principalship.
Well, that's a lot being Fred Flintstone here. So we're gonna cut out. I think that it's crucial that I address that I was an assistant principal for 13 years. I was blackballed in my first district, never to become a principal. The politics, you know this. You know there's politics. That's why we got to read Glenn Robbins' book, Won't Back Down. It talks about the dark side of politics. And I was part of that. I was both on the good side of politics and I've been on the bad side of politics. And for 13 years, it got to a point to where I was told you're never going to be allowed to interview to become a principal. Never. Straight out. And I had too much time. And that's why I tell people out there, hey, if you're listening to this, you have to leave. If you know you're blackballed or you're not given the opportunity, you have to leave. Trust me, the grass, you make it green. Let me repeat that again. You make the grass green on the other side. It's not always green on the other side if you think it's going to be ready for you. You have to continue making it green. And so one of my colleagues that had worked with me in that district, she went up the ranks. We were peers and then she moved up. And she became an area superintendent in the neighboring district. And again, this is my second angel. Carmen Crocé. Without that woman, I would have never been a principal. She saw that even though I was blackballed, I never gave up on kids. I never stopped busting my ass to make sure the kids were successful. She saw the work that I did as an assistant principal, and then I was in charge of a medical magnet. And when you work with medical you see, I was used to dealing with all the hard-headed kids, all the Joshes, right? And then all of a sudden, my principal says, you know what? I need you to take over the medical magnet. And I'm like, I can't deal with that kid. Those are the nerds. I don't know how to deal with those kids. There is a mentality. There is a total different mentality. No disrespect. I know it's the 21st century. You don't like to be called nerds. I apologize. But you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I hear you.
And so the program was only raking in like 100 kids. And for the amount of money with 7 certifications, that was not good. You need to bring in more kids to that program because you're dropping tons of Carl Perkins money on there. And so he says, I need you to go out there and take charge. There were some issues going on with paperwork and MOUs and kids maintaining the standard. And I went in, had to revamp the whole program. But then I started using social media. So what you see right now, those were the early stages of Josh on social media. So when I took over, with the help of the Bel Air staff and most importantly, the Bel Air Highlander kids, we started recruiting literally all over the city of El Paso. I will go to the border of New Mexico and try to recruit those kids. And that enrollment went up from 100 kids to 165. I brought an extra 65 kids for 2 years. You know how hard that is? But you know what I did was that I did the brain drain, and all the high schools hated that because all those smart kids that were 8th graders that were to go up to their feeder pattern, I took them. And so that angered them. And so when Ms. Crocé saw everything that was going on, she would see what I would be putting out on social media. She says, hey, Josh, I want you to come over to my alma mater and you need to interview. But right now, there are 2 principals running it. The quietness is for effect. 2 principals of a 6A high school with 2,550 kids. There's constant fights. There's a drug house right next to the parking lot. It is the lowest graduation rate. It is the worst letter grade high school in the district. And I think got what it takes to come and turn it around. So I said, why not? Let's go. So I went from a medical magnet kid with, man, we just turned that program around. Kids were getting certifications from vet tech to phlebotomy to LVN. I mean, it was beautiful. Then I go back to what I'm used to, to the Joshes. And she allowed me to get my foot in the door. So I'm very appreciative of Millie Williams and Carmen Crozet. I will always speak their name because through them, they gave me the glory to pass on the big vision. And at that campus where I became a principal for the first time, I think that was 2016. And we turned it around thanks to the hard work of our team members, every single the custodians, the cafeteria workers, security, our team members in the classroom, the APs. That school with 2,050 kids that is literally on the border of the border with Mexico. We had all 89% lower socioeconomic, all poor, all Hispanic, an area where it's not supposed to be successful. In 3 years, those hardworking teachers raised it from a D- to a B-. Let me repeat that again. 2,550 kids went from a D- that was the lowest, full of fights, full of weed, full of low attendance, to a B- with distinctions. It went from an 88% graduation rate when our administration walked in to a 92 when I left when COVID hit. That was done in 3 years. And it could be done as long as you always accentuate the positive, that you care about kids and they know that you're caring about them. And most importantly, that you establish structures and protocols that everyone follows. And you hold everyone responsible, starting with me, starting with the main chair. Because if the main chair is not role modeling the expectation, then it will never happen, because people will call you out. People will say that you're a phony baloney and they will not follow your vision. And so that's where I became the principal. And then, you know what? I think you understand this. And a lot of the people that hear my next conversation, there's something about sitting in the main chair that really creates divorce. It creates problems in your house, your personal house as a principal. It creates friction with your significant other, with your wife, your whatever it might be, because you're at your events and not at your family's events. I was raising other people's kids and ignoring my kids. I would be going to by district, area, regional quarterfinals. I would be gone every weekend, because the only way you turn around a school is by always being everywhere. My job was 7 days a week. I would be putting 16 hours per day, because you needed to be seen visible in the classroom, in the hallway, in the lunchroom, at the softball game, at the orchestra, at the flags, at the underwater basket weaving, whatever it might be. You need to be there. And so again, God sent me another angel. And they said, there's a school here in North Dallas, and we think you're going to be the right fit for it. It's a school with immigrants. Hey, that's me. I had to learn English. I'm an immigrant. And it's kids that will drop out. It's kids that would fail in high school. Hey, that's me. There are no UIL activities. There is no accountability. And whenever you're done, you're done. So now overall, I went from being in a school 24/7, coming to North Dallas, to a school where I'm home by 5:00 every day, raising my kids. I've not missed anything. More often than not now, I'm here with my kids, whatever their celebrations are, whatever it might be, as compared to before, they were third. I am ashamed of saying that. It does bother me that my wife had to hold the house down. It does bother me, much respect to her for doing that, for having that ability to maintain the household, because I would have to put both my health, the school, and then my family in that order. Because if I'm not on tip-top shape, then the school's not going to be running. And my focus was at Marine Corps stick to your protocols, stick to what you have to do. So I got tired pretty much of not being with mine. And I had recently had a brand new baby. And that's when COVID happened. And so I no disrespect to anybody out there at all. Much love to you. I'm not saying it happened, not happened. No one talks about COVID anymore. No one talks about whatever happened back then. But for our family, for the Tovares, it was a great time. Because when the shutdown happened, I was running the school from El Paso in Dallas. I was in El Paso, but running a school in Dallas from El Paso. And my family and I, we bonded. I raised my baby. I saw my baby. I smelled him. He pooped on me. All that stuff that goes with being, we would do family walks. We would do all that. So COVID pretty much brought us together because we were never really a unit. And so now I'm here at Memorial Pathway Academy in Garland ISD, Garland, USA. And it's a magical place. And again, coming here, there were so many things that needed rewiring. There were so many changes and expectations because like I mentioned, they would send kids to Memorial Pathway Academy. They would just get them out of here. Just graduate them. The lowest expectation was 22 credits. Just get them out. They never go to school. They're here to sell drugs. They're here to ditch, whatever. Just graduate them. And then the newcomers, just teach them whatever. Try to get some English in there. I go, that's not fair. I wouldn't like that. That's not what I expect. And so up until this last year, we've turned, our team members in the classroom, our secretary, our paraprofessionals. Obviously, I've gone from a little city that I ran every day, close to 3,000 people, down to 450. Not that much, just a little enclave as compared to what that is. But it's turned around. Kids are graduating. There are more kids now graduating on the actual graduation advanced plan, like everybody else. They're all graduating with CCMR. Our EB students are leaving our home, practicing, speaking English, and they're prepared for their comprehensive schools. Last year, we just did the data, and I'll share this because I don't think a lot of people at my school listen because it's part of my PD. All last year, I think we maxed out at 472 kids, and we have 6th grade to seniors. I've got 10-year-olds to 20-year-olds in one building. I got them separated by 3 hallways. And with all those things, we had a total of 60 referrals in the whole year. 60. And they were mainly for cell phone and just falling asleep in class. Wouldn't you like to have that as an issue? Wouldn't you like to have that? I had no fights. I had some shoving by 6th graders. You know how that goes. You know how 6th graders are, right? You know how 6th graders are. I had no major fights. I had no girl fights. I had some vapes. We averaged out 0.34 referrals per day. 0.34. What is that? It's a joke. There were weeks that we would have weeks that not one hallway would send a referral. So it's all based on those procedures, and they're all based on love and caring, making sure that the kid feels connected with the educator, making sure that the kid feels connected with the building, and making sure that the parents, when they drop off their child, they know that they're being loved.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
All right, educational leaders. You know how we tell our students feedback makes us better? Well, same goes for this podcast. If you've been getting value from this podcast, please take 60 seconds to leave a quick 5-star review. This review isn't just a pat on the back, although I appreciate it. It helps other leaders find the show, join the conversation, and grow right along with us. More reviews equal more reach equal a stronger community of game-changing educators. So hit that review button, drop a few words, and let's keep making educational leadership better together. Now, back to the show. I think you covered a lot of things. There's really interesting kind of how, you had people in your life that kind of put you in a position to show, you know what, I can do this. And then, you know what? You are doing a really good job. Let's try you at this. And you succeeded. And I think you bring something up that we all go through as administrators where we do put our families, behind our career a lot of the times, especially when you get new to it and you feel like you got to do everything. But then you get like I'm 8 years in as a principal. I'm just finished my 7th year as a principal, going into my 19th year overall in education. I've had to learn, you know what? There's times where, hey, my job comes, that's what I'll do. But then I have to learn to shut that off. And when I'm with my family, I'm there. I think the best advice I've ever had was be present where your feet are at. So if you're at your school doing your job, you're doing it to the best of your ability. You're at home with your family, you're being with your family to the best of your ability. I think we all struggle with that as administrators because even when you're at for me and you as a high school principal, you feel like, oh my gosh, for me to turn this around or to get where I want it to go, I got to do this, I got to do that. Just overdo it, and you can't keep up on it. So I really appreciate that you shared that struggle because we all go through it. It all takes us time to figure out how to manage that, so our families don't feel neglected when you're in this role as well.
And let me just say this, and I know you've heard some of my podcasts, and I'm very honest in everything. If you want to do an effective job, I can tell you there is no such thing as life work balance. If you choose to interview for a school that's a D or an F, you better make sure you talk to your partner first. Make sure you tell them, hey, I'm going to interview, and it's a tough school, and I won't be here for a lot of days. I'm not going to be here for birthdays. You better have that conversation before you go to the interview. Because if you don't have that conversation, that's going to create the divorce. Because in the end, if you suck as a principal and they're hiring you to go fix a not good school and you're not good, then that means your career just went down the toilet. You'll be blackballed and you never get another chance as an administrator. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. They'll put you back in the classroom. There's a lot of incidents out there that principals become classroom teachers again. Mm-hmm. And so it's very important that you know what you're getting yourself into. I'm sorry. I hear it. I don't agree. Josh, everyone else can agree with it. Everyone else can agree with it. But there is no such thing as life to work balance. If you want to raise a low performing environment, you have to really put in the time for that to happen. And then what sucks about it, and I think you know this, what sucks about it is that once you make it high, the hard part is keeping it at that level. Mm-hmm. So people would say, oh, I'm walking into a B. I'm walking into an A campus. Oh, baby, you better walked into a D. Because the thing is, if the guy before you left a B and you drop it to a C or you drop it to a D, baby, that's you. If you walked into an A and it goes to a B, woo! Oh, but I have life work balance. Oh no, I turn off my cell phone on Saturdays. Oh, I don't send emails I don't read emails. Fine. But for every action, there is an equal reaction.
Yeah.
And just understand that if it's a needy school, you're going to need the leader. And you always need to role model the expectation.
You bet. No, and I think I agree with that. I think you as a leader got to role model the expectations you have. Because if you don't, like you said, they'll call you out and they ain't going to follow, or they're not going to follow a leader that isn't going to hold themselves to the expectation you're asking them to do. And I always tell my staff, I'm never going to ask you to do anything that I haven't done or I won't be willing to do myself. I think that's important for leaders to know out there is don't ask more of people that you wouldn't do yourself. So if you do that, I think you're in a good place. I think we talk about work-life balance. The reality is if you are being the best person you are at the place that you are, so if you're being dad, be the best dad you can be at that time. If you're being a husband, be the best husband at that time, or wife, or, grandparent or whatever. Then when you're in the principal role, you're being the best principal while you're at that job, because you're never going to be able to make it 50-50. It's not going to happen. There's times of the year where you're just going, and the school leadership role. And then there's times like, hey, I was able to take some time off, and I was able to spend it with my family and do those things. And, you have to learn like, okay, this is when I am present in here. And so I think being the best you can be where your feet are at, I think is the best advice that I could give somebody in this role, because you're never going to be, 50-50 on anything ever. Probably more like 60. If you get the 75-25, you're doing all right, you know? But at the same time, I really appreciate just your journey and everything that you've done. What is the biggest lesson you've learned as an administrator that you could help other administrators thinking about getting into this role? What is something that you say? I think you've talked about a lot of it, but maybe kind of, you talk about culture, you talk about, discipline, you talk about expectations, and systems. What is something that you said, this is probably, it's all important, but I think is really important if you're coming in to being a principal that you need to know about being a principal?
A few things. Number one, when your team members get dressed in the morning, eat breakfast, and they're walking to their car and they have their keys in the ignition, do they say, I gotta go to work? Or do they say, all right, I'm going to work? Are you setting up a good environment for those people? When your kids, your students, your scholars go to your campus, do they feel safe? Would you want your kid, your DNA, principal, assistant principal, would you want your kid in every teacher's class? Let me repeat that again. Have you created something in your campus that you could put your own DNA in every teacher's class? What you do to celebrate kids, would you like it as a dad, as a mom? Do you even do anything to celebrate the child and not make it only about the learning? What is going out there? What is your vision? Your vision has to cover your babies, your scholars, their parents, so that they leave you alone, and your team members. If your vision encompasses all of those three parts, then you'll be okay. If you're able to go to a conference and not get a phone call, you're doing good. If you're able to go to central office, to a training, and never get a call from security, from an AP, from a teacher, you're doing good. If you're worried about something happening at your school, you're not doing good. You don't have systems in place that will give you peace of mind. Let me tell you, when I go to conferences, like I went to during school time, I think I went to North Carolina Middle School Conference, which I suggest everyone go this year. I didn't worry about it. I didn't worry about it at all. When I take off to take my kids now, I get to take my kids to doctor's appointments. I call in sick and I take my babies. No one calls me because there's procedures, systems in place. And if someone calls me from the school, it better be Hiroshima. And let me tell you, knock on fake wood, I've established enough wherever I'm at where I don't get calls at all whatsoever. So, educator out there that wants to sit in the chair, does your vision cover 360 those three groups? Do they want to be at your school? Would you have your kids at that school? And do you honor and celebrate everybody to where they feel comfortable? Now, don't get me wrong. You're always going to have hurt people. Hurt people hurt people. And it doesn't matter. You can never make everyone happy. I've learned that in so many schools. Do you know who the weebies are? Have you heard of the weebies?
The weebies. Explain the weebies so people.
The weebies. Guys, there's a group, and Coach Hurt, who's part of the Fantastic Four, which is part of our podcast system, he calls them Mr. and Mrs. Potato Plant. I call them the weebies. Those are those ankle biters that every school has. And you know what they say? We be here before you. We be here after you. We ain't going to do what you say. So everyone has those weebies. Don't worry about the weebies. Don't worry about Mr. or Mrs. Potato Plant. Worry about honoring your scholars and making sure that you're that light that they need, that you're that lighthouse that they inspires them. You're that person, that individual, that vision that makes sure that they'll walk on fire for you. And if you do that, then you know what? In 15 years, when you're at Subway and you got shades on and you have no makeup and you stink, one of your scholars is going to go up to you and they're going to say, Tovar, is that you, Tovar? You have a cap on. You're not dressed normally. And they say, yeah, Tovar, because of you, you changed my life. That school changed my life. Thank you. Drop mic. You've made a difference.
Those are the moments we live for as educators, right? Where you don't get those things in the moment. Those things come year down the road. I've had students that I've coached or I've taught, as well as being a person. I've had people write me letters, shoot me a quick DM on Facebook, just saying, hey, because of your leadership or what you've done, thank you. This is where I'm at today. And because of these things. So those are the most rewarding parts about this. These are things you don't get in the moment, but they're things that you get 5, 10, 15, 20, in your case, 33 years down the road. You're going to get those moments where someone's going to tell you, hey, I appreciate the things you've done because it helped me get to where I'm at today. And so I think those are very impactful things to understand as well. Maybe when you're in the job and you're thinking, oh my gosh, am I making a difference? Like you said, if you have systems in place and you have the right people, you put a great teacher in front of those students and you help them be great. And those students, and you're impacting students everywhere you go, it's going to matter. And you just won't know it until later. I think that's a great way to take some great advice for people out there thinking about the chair. So you talked about the Fantastic Four. You talked about the podcasting. You are a fellow podcaster as well. It's called the PGP Podcast. Now, for those that don't know, what does PGP mean?
PGP Podcast, Puras Ganas Podcast, Puras Ganas. You know what? There's not a lot of Hispanic podcasts out there that are education based. You know that. Trust me, I look for them. I have yet to find one. If you're an educator, I don't mean to do tribes at all. I don't mean to separate because I see everything. You know that. I watch a litany of podcasts, but you know what? There's a certain niche and certain conversations that you do have with Hispanic kids. You know that.
Oh yeah.
You know that. You work with those kids in Nebraska. You know what I'm talking about. There's a certain kind of dialogue, a certain kind of verbal connection. We talk about papusas or enchiladas or the chancla or the fly swatter or whatever it is. There's certain connections that you make as educators that bring that inspiration of being that loving person that is the provider of knowledge for kids. And so it's a term that we always use as Hispanics, and that's where we got the name from. Puras Ganas is a term phrase used by Hispanics all over the Western Hemisphere. And we're part of a group of 4 podcasters. So the very first one is Coach Hurt. These are all Facebook Live. Coach Hurt, if you need help with data, that guy, he talks it. I understand it, but he talks it like he talks good. You know how there's Texas laws and then there's federal laws, and Texas do their own nonsense. And those darn red states, right? And then there's federal guidelines. If you need help on how to break down your data and your quartiles and your centiles and the ooptiles, whatever it is, Coach Hurt is your man. Then after that, at 10:30, you've got Shika and Tammy, the doctors. And what they do is that they talk about how to turn around a school. Those 2 ladies were about to get fired. They were told, pick up the school or you're out. So they created a framework, the real framework. What is the real framework? You got to find out. Tune in at 10:30 and they will educate you on how to create those steps and those protocols. Our third program is El Jefe, Principal Baruti Cafele. Principal Cafele. If I need to say anything about that, then you've been under a rock. But you got to listen to him at 10:55. Those are the 3 programs, and we're the anchor. We're the anchor on Sundays at 4 p.m. Central. But once football starts, we're going to move it up to 5 p.m. because I know football is king across the United States. So we're all the same, but we're totally different. We all love kids. We all inspire adults or look to inspire them, but we all have a different niche. We all do. Our show platforms are totally different, but the same. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what bonds us together. We are a group of educators that provide you with free PD.
Free PD. And let's talk about that free PD because, Josh, you listen to multiple podcasts. And I know as a podcaster, when you have people out there promoting your podcast, it means a lot. And I appreciate listening and doing that. But you listen to multiple. I mean, if it's an education, you're listening to it, you're doing reviews, you're sharing it out. And to be honest, I have actually followed you on Facebook and LinkedIn. And so I see your post and I go, hey, that sounds like an interesting podcast. I'm going to go check that out for myself. And you always talk about, free PD, no excuses. What inspires you to do that? What is the reasoning behind, in my sense, you're lifting up other educators and helping, with their networking abilities. Because I will tell you, people are downloading my show even more since you've done that. And I see the effects of it just in my downloads. What has caused you? What inspires you to do that? Because I know it's appreciated. I love them. And I love the reviews that you put out for people's episodes.
Well, thank you. That's very kind. You know what? I truly believe that iron sharpens iron. And there's a certain thing that happens to educators, to administrators after 30 years. A lot of them think that they know it all or they're already tapped out. And I cannot do that. I can't become stagnant water. That would be such a failure or lack of respect for the people that believed in me. I could never become that individual that says, I'm at the end, I don't care. I can't. I could. I've established a good pattern. I've established success. But you know what? That's cheating my current kid. And I refuse to do that because a lot of people cheated me when I was going up. And so I like listening to educators. I need to learn what's going on. The person that started all this, and he'll be on the show, is Fonz, my EdTech life. So I started, it all started with Corona. We all started everyone started podcasting, and you had nothing to do but was to walk, take in, deliver at your house, and listen to shows, watch TV. And I listened to Fonz, and I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. This is pretty cool. All right. And so then just started listening, but I wouldn't repost or anything like that. So much respect, much love to Fonz, who was the first person to get me hooked into this. Obviously, there's a lot of national podcasters out there that connect with you. In regards to the field of education, he was the one. Then one day, there was Chris Sarcheski and Dean Packard. They started a podcast for educators. It was called Unlock the Middle. And they would call me every once in a while to be part of their panel to talk. And one day he just said, hey, you're a turnaround principal. You want to be on the show? And I'm like, you get this when you call people for the first time. They're like, me? Why would you want me? And then I thought nothing of it. And from that moment on, for like around, I think 2 years, I was on Unlock the Middle with them. And your question to me was, well, why do you share it and review it? Because I thought we did tons of great shows with them, but we wouldn't get, we don't get feedback sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
And we want to know. I even hear you on your show say, hey, you like this, let me know. Hey guys, when we ask you as podcasters, it's not about ego or vanity. We just know, like Coach Hurt says, are we talking good? Are you getting anything out of this? Are you becoming a better version of yourself with listening to these words? And so I said, you know what? Obviously, as I said earlier, I need to role model the expectations, right? So again, I got to practice what I preach. So at that moment, I started hearing podcasts. I started doing, just a little picture of what I was seeing and just heard the show, listened to it. But that's so, on a scale of 1 to 5, that's so nonsense, right? So then how can I engage people? That's what we tell our kids to do when they write prompts, right? What can we tell to engage the reader? And so then I started doing that, doing a summary of what I heard and just posting it out there. And then when you hear that, then you start seeing other podcasters appear on your feed, right? And if you see the same guest and you follow them somewhere else, oh, I like what they said. Let me hear them again with this other person. Are they faking the funk? Are they putting on the show, or is it really them? And then you review it. And so then I just got into that. But then that also became a great pattern for me. Again, part of my life. And I'm sure that you know this. I'll wake up early in the morning at 3:30 every morning to go to the gym. So I'm at the gym by 4:15. And along the way, while I'm drinking my supplements, while I'm driving to the gym, while I'm out there, it allows me to focus on what my vision is and being prepared for the first when I go to school. So I put those reviews out there. Number one, for the hard work. Hey, everybody out there, everybody that does a podcast, it is very time consuming. We're not getting any financial, we're not getting Joe Rogan money. We're not getting Bill Maher money. None of us are getting any money. All I'm letting you know is that we do it because we want our beautiful profession to become the best version of itself, especially with the exodus that's going on. We have so many administrators coming up that shouldn't be administrators, but because so many are leaving, we have so many alt-certs out there that we don't have the money either to send people to training or the time. So these are the great things that we need to use. So if you listen to a podcast, just like it and share it. Like this one, it's not out of vanity. And it's not about being jealous of somebody else. It's nothing. It's about, did we learn from each other? Did we do a good job that can help another person? So I think that the best thing that I could do to help your podcast, to help Fonz's, Barbara Bray, I mean, you know, the list goes on, Tony Catani. I listened. I think I'm at 18 right now that I alternate. And then what am I in the mood for? And then I just review it. So I listen to it. I try to listen to 3 every day, unless they're 1 hour, like Dave Bridges' podcasts are an hour. That takes up most of my workout time. But I learn a lot from Dave Bridges. So you put those things out there. And if I got something out of it and I'm an old fart, oil, I'm a dinosaur, then maybe you, first year principal, I can guarantee you could get something out of it.
But I appreciate it. You said a lot of really great things there. I think the free PD is like, if you even listen to my intro, I talk about this is professional development. Like my goal for the podcast is to give something to other administrators to help them. That's the heart. That's the mission. I bring on guests to go, hey, what can we learn from this guest? How can we connect ourselves? Because as principals, this could be a lonely job. You could be isolated. Yeah, you may have assistant principals, but when you're at the top, you're the building principal and you are in charge of that building. It's not the assistant principal that's going to get in trouble. It's you. You got to be the one that has to, your foot is going to be held to the fire. So you have to make sure that you're doing the best you can. Do right by your assistant principals, everybody that you are working with and collaborating with. And so that's why I do it. It took me a while to really be consistent with it. And that's something that I've gotten way better at. You know what? I wouldn't be here talking to Josh Tovar without this podcast. I would be learning from him today and his journey in education. And I wouldn't learn from Darren Pepper. And I wouldn't learn from Tony Catani. These are people that I've listened to as well as putting out a content for other people. It's not about me. I really care less about myself. I care about helping others that are in this seat because I think we're getting more of it and it's really great to see. But when I started podcasting, there wasn't a lot out there. And so I think it's grown over the last 3-4 years. And I think it's great. And it's a great way to stay connected when you are in the seat at your school. And you could be that small rural school like I was. There's not a lot of networking you can do out in a cornfield of a school. You got to have some way to get connected and network with other educators. And you have to be able to do it on a daily. That's where podcasts, I think, are a really great tool to do that. So thank you, Josh, for that. And so, man, this has been a great conversation. Time has flown by. I've learned so much from you and just your path, your journey, where you're at. So, Josh, what are you up to today? People want to reach out and get connected with you. How can they reach out? I'll put your information in the show notes for that. What is the best advice you could give educational leaders before we end the show today?
Reach out, steal everything that I put out on social media, take it, make it yours. If you need me to help you with some logos or some stuff, I'll show you what apps I use. I'll screenshot my phone and I'll send it to you. Just do something to make sure that you start off 25, 26 in a great way. Because right now, you see, culture is not in the year. Culture is year round. I've been doing culture stuff already all summer. I've been sending out stuff to kids, to teachers. I've been doing all that out there because I'd rather spend time front load love. So when you come in, you already know that the Linus blanket is waiting for you. So reach out to me, whatever you need. You want to be a guest on the PGP podcast? Come on over. I'm already booking for September. Come on over. Tell me what you do. We'll find a niche. We'll put you in there. But most importantly, if you want to visit our home, come on over. If you're in Texas, hey, you want to come over from Nebraska? Come on over. You know what? We have 10 districts visit us last year. 10. They left awestruck on the pedagogy that's implemented at Memorial Pathway Academy for kids from Pakistan, from Africa, from Vietnam, from all Central South America, to those kids that are teen parents, those kids that are 19 with 3 credits. That's who is MPA. And I know you educator, I know you have that. And you know what? This is where magic is made. The true Disneyland is no longer in Florida and California. It is at MPA. So come on over, copy the stuff that we have, and visit us. You open door. I don't put a dog and pony show on. You've been to those schools where you visit that same classroom. I don't. I just set up a structure and say, what do you want to see? And we're just going to walk in. I never tell anybody other than the clerks. We might have guests tomorrow. That way, some strangers come in. We got to do the background check and the whole ID stuff. But other than that, I don't tell anybody. I say, hey, they might be on conference. We're just going to walk into the classroom. And I want you to see this and make sure that you check for their exit tickets. Everyone, wherever we walk in, they see that the kids are engaged. They see that there's no cell phones out. They see that there's bell-to-bell instruction. So if you want to see that, you have an open invitation to come to Memorial Pathway Academy. And if you want to know a little bit of our story, I wrote about it in Barbara Bray's book, Grow Your Why, chapter 23. I am the last chapter. They saved the best for last, baby. That's MPA. If you want to find out how you turn a school from a D- to a B-, if you want to turn around a school like MPA, this is where you find out about it. I wrote about it. Reach out. I'm here for you. Iron sharpens iron.
Hey, I appreciate you being on the show today, Josh. I appreciate all the insights you have and the work you're doing and how you're impacting education in a positive light. Thank you for being on the show today.
Gracias.
What a great episode with Josh Tovar. Josh shared his powerful journey with personal insights on how he got into education, his time in the U.S. Marine Corps, to leading schools with heart, purpose, and relentless focus on relationships. This message is a reminder that leadership is about connection, being authentic, and service to others. If you're not already following Josh, be sure to check out the PGP podcast and follow his work on social media. His energy is contagious, and his insights are invaluable. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with others who need to hear it. Until next time, be 1% better. Thank you for sticking around to the very end of this episode. I hope this podcast brings value to you as an educational leader. I would invite you to share this podcast with other educational leaders, or maybe that inspiring teacher who would like to be an educational leader someday. I would also invite you to subscribe and to follow this podcast so you can get the most recent updated episodes when they drop. I would also love it if you leave a review and rate this podcast 5 stars, because that would make this podcast more discoverable to other educators like yourself. You can also follow me on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X, Threads, and Substack. All you need to do is look for Principal J.O., and boom, there I am. This is where we can continue the conversations from the episodes that you have enjoyed. I am so thankful for you guys for listening. Until next time, always be 1% better.